So what if I told you that Earth has a long-lost twin, a planet that was, for all intents and purposes, just like ours, a potential paradise? But something went terribly wrong, and it became a cautionary tale. Today we're going to dive into the story of this ghost world. We're talking about Venus.
And this is the question that really keeps scientists up at night. Could life, against all odds, still be hiding out on our forgotten twin? I mean, is it even possible that in this absolute hellscape, or maybe, just maybe, floating high above it, something is still there?
I mean, just look at these numbers. It's night and day. While we're here enjoying a comfortable 15 degrees Celsius, Venus is scorching hot, hot enough to melt lead. The pressure on the surface is 90 times what we feel here, enough to instantly crush a submarine. And the air? It's a toxic, corrosive cocktail of carbon dioxide and sulfuric acid. It's almost impossible to believe these two planets were ever alike.
But that's the crazy part. Billions of years ago, they basically were twins. They're almost the exact same size, have similar mass, comparable gravity. I mean, both planets had everything they needed to hold on to a thick, life-sustaining atmosphere. So you have to ask, what went so catastrophically wrong for Venus?
Well, to figure that out, we've got to rewind the clock. Way back, billions of years back, to a time when Venus wasn't a furnace, but a world of water, a lost paradise.
Take a look at this timeline. It tells a story you might not have heard before. 4 billion years ago, our sun was younger and dimmer, which means Venus was actually a lot cooler. So cool, in fact, that by 3 billion years ago, it probably had shallow oceans of liquid water. You know, a world that was absolutely primed for life.
And we all know the golden rule. Where you find liquid water, you find the potential for life. So for maybe a billion years, Venus could have been this thriving microbial world, a lot like the early Earth. It had all the right ingredients.
But as you can probably guess, this watery paradise wasn't meant to last. A catastrophic event was brewing, something that would literally boil the oceans away and seal the planet's fate. Scientists call it the Great Boiling.
So what was the fatal flaw? What was Venus's Achilles heel? Well, it all comes down to this. Venus didn't have plate tectonics. Here on Earth, plate tectonics act like a giant thermostat for the planet, recycling carbon from the atmosphere back into the rock and keeping our climate stable. Venus, tragically, was missing that critical safety switch.
And without that safety switch, Venus was basically a ticking time bomb. First, you get these huge volcanic eruptions that pump the atmosphere full of CO2. That starts trapping heat. As the planet gets warmer, the oceans start to boil, turning into water vapor. And here's the kicker. Water vapor is an incredibly powerful greenhouse gas itself. So that just slammed the accelerator on the heating, creating this runaway feedback loop. The planet just got hotter and hotter until the sun's radiation blasted the water molecules apart, and all the hydrogen just escaped into space, lost forever.
And the result of all that? A mind-boggling 470 degrees Celsius. That's the temperature on the surface today. Hot enough to melt lead. The watery paradise was gone, replaced by a planetary furnace. But what if the story isn't quite over? Yeah, the surface is a complete lost cause, but what if life found a way? What if it escaped the inferno and found a refuge high up in the clouds?
Okay, this is where things get really interesting. If you go about 50 kilometers up into the Venusian clouds, the conditions are, well, they're shockingly familiar. The temperature is a comfortable 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, like a nice spring day, and the atmospheric pressure is pretty much the same as it is here on Earth's surface. Now, it's still a very acidic place, don't get me wrong, but it's like this little temperate oasis floating in an otherwise hellish sky.
And that brings us to a really mysterious chemical called phosphine. Here's why it matters. On our planet, phosphine is almost exclusively produced by living things, like microbes that live in oxygen-free environments. We really don't know of any other natural, geological, or chemical process that can make it in large quantities.
So, you can imagine the excitement when, in 2020, scientists announced they detected phosphine in the clouds of Venus. Now, it's important to say the finding is still being debated in the scientific community, but the implications are just staggering. Is there some weird, unknown chemistry happening up there that we don't understand? Or could it be the first real clue that we found life beyond Earth?
You know, when you think about it, Venus is more than just a cautionary tale. It's the ghost of a world that could have been, a world a lot like ours, and its story is this incredibly stark reminder of just how fragile our own planet really is, As we keep looking out to the stars for answers, maybe the most important lesson Venus has to teach us is how to take better care of the amazing home we already have.